everybody. Hi. Today's video, in this little bit, I want to give a quick heads up before we start the video today, the graph paper part, about the fact that at the end of this video you might not feel any big bang for the buck in your playing, but it's going to be an important, necessary initial 10-minute, 11-minute video about creating a graph paper chart that we're going to keep referencing in a future series of videos. It's going to be a very important training wheels, so to speak, helping you get started translating the necessary music theory a guitarist needs to know, like a rock improvising sense guitarist needs to know to start out with, and relating that right to your guitar's fretboard. So let's just keep in mind that I'm going to gloss over each entry, just tell you what to fill out on this chart today. So you're going to end up with a whole bunch of maybe meaningless gibberish on a chart and without any real boost to your playing in this video, but it's going to be a very important chart that we keep on going back to. So everything needs to start from here. So let's get started right into this video before I ramble on too much and go down that rabbit hole of music theory information. Here we go. Consider yourself warned. You are now entering an endless rabbit hole of music theory information for free that could end up making you a better player, or just need something with Mark's graph paper method. Alright, looks like you made it safely in the graph paper method land here. First thing we're going to do is simply fill in a row of 12 boxes here with the numbers 1 through 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Alright, there we go. Did you get that? And we're going to write Western scale right next to that. That's what we want to know about that row of 12, and remember, we'll discuss these in depth later. Let's keep populating this list here. It's pretty in depth, so let's keep going. The next one we're going to write is called intervals. We're going to start with an R for root, and we need something called a flat second here, so we're going to put a tiny little B there and the number 2, and here I'm going to write a larger number 2, and I'm going to write a smaller 3 with the B there for flat third and third. Then we'll write the number 4, and then watch closely here. We're going to have a 5, a flat 5. So we're going to have that little tiny B in there. It's kind of tiny, but hopefully you've got your corrective lenses in, or your eyesight's still holding on, and see how that in this box is number 6, this one is flat 7, and this one is number 7. Perhaps you can invest in some graph paper with some bigger boxes if sight is a problem. But otherwise, here we have this, an interval list, important interval list in this row, and we'll talk about that later. So let's move on here. The next row down, we're going to write in the words all notes, simply stated. Now, something about this is we're not going to start with the A notes. We're actually going to start with the C note to make some sense of the list down below. So let's start with this C note here, and we're going to write C, and right here we're going to put D in the next box. However, in between the D and the C is a note, and that note is called C sharp and D flat. So let's give ourselves a little notation here. You can write it here, you can write it anywhere, that this is going to be sharps and this is going to be flats. Sharp and flat. So we have C, C sharp, D flat, D. D has a D sharp and an E flat. Something special there. The E and the F do not have a sharp and flat in between them. Something you may already know, and if you don't, this chart will help to constantly remind you of that till you know it for sure, and you know it like everybody else that does know it. F, G, G, rated G, and an A there, and an A, which follows an A sharp, B flat, and a B, and you see we're at the end of the list here, so that must join up next to C, and what do you know? In the major scale, or in our scale, B and C have no note in between. They're always next to each other, as are E and F. That comes up later. Let's keep moving. So, next in our master chord chart here, I guess that's what I'm calling it, we're going to write major scale sing-along. So we write in do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And the major scale sing-along, as you know, is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Most guitarists tend to shun this because it sounds so grade school and doesn't sound like anything you're going to do to make a cool rock and roll song, but your understanding of everything has to have some foundation, and this is the foundation that turns into everything that's much cooler. So keep in mind, so the next thing is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. So from here, we're going to have another listing here called piano. So to create something that resembles a piano keyboard, we're going to shade in at each and every sharp and flat note and see what it looks like. See that from here we have a group of 1, 2, and 3 next to a 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to write down some note names, and we're going to call that C major. And so a piano keyboard reveals something unique that we want to go back to the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do and remark it to show us the 3 whole steps that always sit next to 4 whole steps. So we're going to mark those as we're going to mark the do, re, mi in red, and we're going to mark the fa, sol, la, ti in green, and that's going to indicate to us that we always have 3 whole steps butted up to 4 whole steps. And that creates the major scale, and that also appears on the guitar fretboard, and it can also help you find out where you are, what key a song is in, and so on and so forth. As long as you can find 3 whole steps, and then where it joins up with the next 3 whole steps, which one of those is a row of 4 whole steps, if that makes any sense. But we'll talk about that later. Moving on. Down the road here, we said C major scale, so this is why most music theory uses this key of C to explain things to you, because the key of C, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, that means taking the 12 tones and pulling the first tone, skipping this tone, pulling out the second tone, the 5th tone, going to the 6th tone, skipping the 7th, going to the 8th tone, playing the 9th tone, and the 12th tone, creates the next box is going to be chord tones and scale degrees. So we're just going to write down in here scale degrees. I don't know why I chose red there, just to spice it up a little bit, but scale degrees, let's write down in this box. You're often going to hear talked about your 1, this is your 2, this is your 3, 1, a 1, 4, 5 in blues, your 6th note and your 7th note. Your notes are given names, so now you know where scale degrees come from and how they relate to the 12 tones of the major scale, and how they relate to intervals, and how they relate to the notes if you choose a C major scale. So blah, blah, blah. Moving on from there. We've got modes. I like this one. This was one of my favorite ones to figure out in the beginning. Modes. The modes. So we're not going to discuss modes here. We're only going to populate our boxes here with our code list. I for Ionian, D for Dorian, P Phrygian, L Lydian, Mixolydian, A Aeolian, and there's an L right there, and we can't have another L, so we're going to have an L with an X for Locrian. Our next line will be about major and minor chords. You build a chord off the one. I can show you how that works, but we're just going to populate our boxes right now, and you got to follow along and just trust me on this. Is major. The next one here is minor and major. 7. We have a minor. And just follow and fill these in as I go. Minor and diminished, and we'll talk about these later on in another lesson. Alright, we're down to our last row here, and all we want to do is highlight the half steps of the major scale. These are the half steps that you can see clearly back to the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, where the in between the mi and the fa and the ti and the do. So let's jot that down here. We'll use a little underscore here at the mi and the fa and the do and the ti, or ti, do. We'll label it half step, and we'll draw a little box right next to it too, because it's these half steps that form this exact box shape of notes on your guitar's fretboard, making all this very important foundational information easy to translate right to your guitar's fretboard. We'll definitely be discussing that in depth in part 2 of this video, where we go over how to translate all of this info into the box onto your fretboard and how it all works out. So look forward to that. In part 3, we'll go over each line individually and in depth. And that, my friends, should really kickstart your musical journey, helping you turn your emotions into musical structures expressed through your guitar. So in a distant part 4, we can even add in 3 other items that we didn't add to this list, or this special code box. Those are chord extensions, note function, and even a Modal Composer's cheat sheet that will probably be a Patreon reward. So be sure to get this all accurately written out. It's going to be instrumental in moving you away from being just a pentatonic boxer. So remember, we're going to be referring to this code box all the time in all future lessons. You are now preparing to leave the graph paper method. Thank you for watching, and please, please, please subscribe. Have a great day.